renewable and provides those benefits, but that can be the most impactful for our community. You know, we continue to hear a lot about equity and making sure that this program really has an impact for our residents in our opportunity neighborhoods, for those, for the Black community and for people of color. We want to make sure that this program is really supporting residents in our neighborhoods and is the most impactful that it can be. And I think all of you will be really helpful to helping us get there. And that is all from me. I'll hand it back over.
Yeah. So thank you all for joining us today. I think we're all getting used to this virtual environment 6 months in and the engagement and engaging this way, but really appreciate your time. Today, our purpose, is to share our approach to delivering on the goals that Erin just outlined for us all. Specifically, at today's meeting, we want to make sure that everyone starts with the same frame of reference and the same basic understanding about community choice aggregation. So we're going to spend some intentional time discussing what community choice aggregation is and the basics of community choice aggregation. Then we're going to share our specific Sustainable Columbus aggregation goals. And then, after us talking out to you all for a little bit of time to kind of just make sure that we're all coming with the same basic understanding of our aggregation program or our vision for the aggregation program, we want to make sure that we get you all talking and ask for some feedback from you on how we should talk about our community choice aggregation program in our neighborhoods and with our neighbors. And then lastly, want to give you all an opportunity to hear about what's coming next. We are so thankful that you've all agreed to serve on this advisory committee. As Erin mentioned, for us, it's critical to make sure that you guys are advisors, that we hear your perspective on this work and we hear what you think should be included in this program. And as Sonia will mention as we go through the next slides, please don't forget that you are also representatives of your organization. So we're relying on you to go back to your organizations and make sure that the folks that are members of your organizations know about what we've talked about here and know about our work so that you can bring both your own feedback and their feedback to meetings as we move forward. But we're really hoping that this will be a rich conversation. We want you to be involved. We want you to speak because we want your perspective in this work. So thank you all for volunteering and helping us to develop our policy approach.
Thanks, Elena. And hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. My name is Sonia Suter. I'm with Delivery Associates and work with the American Cities Climate Challenge and have been working with Columbus in that capacity for the last year and change, and really excited to be supporting this effort as well. Just to reiterate a few of the things that Elena mentioned on the previous slide, a little bit about how we sort of hope to work together. One is that we are convening, or the city is really convening this group to provide input, particularly on some of the places where to bring the community into the community choice aggregation around how this program can best serve sustainability-focused community priorities. I think another purpose of this group is to make sure that information on how the program will work is shared widely with the organizations that you represent and community members more broadly. And so we hope that you'll play both that role of providing input as well as sharing outward. To that end, and to making what is unfortunately has to be a virtual engagement as sort of engaging as personal and as personable as possible, a few sort of suggested norms for this group would be to use video whenever possible so folks can see who else is there and just sort of get a feeling for the group. Minimize distractions wherever possible. We do hope that we will do our best to make these as engaging as the Zoom format will allow. And then as we get into the discussion portion, to practice democracy of time. So if you realize that you've been speaking a lot, maybe make sure that other folks are getting a chance to chime in as well. And just as importantly, if you realize that you have not been participating so much or perhaps haven't been choosing to speak up, do push yourself to do so, because we really want to get input from everyone. And I just want to pause quickly and see if there's anything else that would be helpful for folks on norms, and then we'll just do a quick thing on the sort of Zoom logistics here. Okay, just moving into a few small details, and then I'll hand it back to Erin. I think folks are pretty, in month 6 of COVID, getting pretty used to this stuff, but please mute when you're not speaking. But at the same time, please do use the chat function that we have here to ask questions, react sort of +1 to things that people are saying, and comment. We can incorporate your feedback into the presentation as we go, and it will give us a sense of what folks are thinking. If you have a chance here, just please do rename yourself with your name, which most of you have, and maybe also org, which I am not modeling correctly right now, but if you click on the 3 little dots over your name, you can rename yourself, which will just help folks understand kind of who else is in the room. We will also, in attempts to make this interactive, we will be using the annotation function that allows you all to kind of write on the screen. We'll do a reminder when that comes up in the presentation, but to do that, you'll see at the top of your screen a little view options that will open a menu that allows you to annotate and place text on the screen. So we'll remind you as that comes up, but just to let you know that that is a possibility. 2 final notes. One is that this meeting is being recorded and to be shared at a later date. So at the same time, we do hope that folks are, as candid and in sharing their opinion and their views and asking questions as possible. I don't believe we have any members of the public observing at this time, but should we have, folks will be able to ask questions at any time. Those of you who are on the aggregation group are joining as panelists right now. And then we'll address, and so folks who are joining as the public will be joining as attendees, but we'll have time to collect questions and respond to them at 2 points during the agenda. So before we go any further, I wanted to just pause for a moment. Erin, I think you wanted to give a comment or yeah.
Yeah, I just know we do have with us as a member of our advisory group, Council Member Rob Dorrance, and I just wanted to recognize and thank him for being a part of us with this work. I know he's very supportive of this effort and has been a great leader around this work. So just wanted to give him an opportunity to give a few words of welcome if he would like.
Thanks, Erin. I won't be long because I know we've got a lot of folks here today. I just want to say thank you to everyone for their engagement on this issue. Erin and I were chatting a couple days ago, and we were talking about this potentially being one of the biggest and fundamental long-term initiatives that the city would take on 10, 20, 30 years down the line, looking at a single policy having a real impact not only on the city of Columbus, but our environment and our region and hopefully our country. So I'm very excited about the potential here for community choice aggregation and the opportunity we have in front of us. So just want to say thank you for everyone's engagement and bringing their experience to the table. And with that, I'd love to turn it back to make sure we're being respectful of folks' time.
Thanks so much, Councilmember Dorrance. So just to round out some of the introductory formalities, want to give folks a little bit more of a sense of who's facilitating and speaking during the conversation today. Maybe we can just go around quickly on the group here. Erin.
Hi, everyone. Yes, Erin back in the mayor's office and part of our policy team.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Elena Shockey. I am the Assistant Director for Sustainability within the Department of Public Utilities. I lead and oversee our Sustainable Columbus initiative.
Hello, I'm Samantha Schneider. I'm the energy manager for the city of Columbus, and I'm located in the Division of Finance and Management.
Good morning, everybody. Jenna Topaldi, the climate advisor for Columbus through the American Cities Climate Challenge. I typically work out of DPU with Elena in the Office of Sustainability. You'll see some emails from me on logistical support for these meetings, calendar invites, any pre-reads or follow-up materials. And if you need anything in between meetings, questions about content or technical questions, feel free to reach out to me throughout this process.
Thanks, Jenna. And I'm Sonia Suter. I work with Delivery Associates and the American Cities Climate Challenge. And as you can probably tell from any background noise, I'm based in Brooklyn. And I'll hand it over to Scott.
Hi, everyone. This is Scott Del Castro. I'm the owner of Trade Out, and we're the consulting firm working with the city to advise them on the aggregation program and carry out and make sure the process is moved towards next year and hitting their goals.
Great. Thanks, Scott. All right. So now we want to turn it over to folks here and get a sense of who else is in the room, do a little bit of an icebreaker. I am going to throw up a whiteboard in just a moment, and we're going to ask folks to just type in the little box your name, organization, and favorite pizza topping. Because who doesn't want to think about pizza prior to 11 a.m.? So just a moment. So just as a reminder, you have at the top of your screen a little view options that will pull down an annotation bar, and if you select text, you can type directly on the screen that you see here.
Sonia, this is John Paul Diversa. I'm not sure that if we're joining from the web, if we have the annotation tool available to us. Do you know if I'm wrong or if it's located in a different place?
Okay, that may be the case. I do know the app version allows for this if the web version is making it a little bit challenging for folks. Are other folks having that challenge as well?
This is Laura. I can't find an annotate option.
So,
This is
Okay.
the same issue. I'm clicking on it and not letting me type anything.
Alrighty.
I do love pepperoni pizza, and I'm from Impact.
Great. All right. Well, if we're having sort of widespread technical issues, if you can type add on here, and then we'll go through here and grab anyone we're missing.
This is Peg Williams. How do
All
I
right.
delete this little circle, square circles?
I got it.
Hey, thank you.
All right. So for any folks who weren't able to add on here. Thank you, Ms. Peg, Sam, Sarah, Aaron, Mark, and Elena. If folks want to I'll just go down quickly and maybe you can just say name and organization. I see John Paul.
Hi, everyone. This is John Paul DeVerse. I'm the Senior Energy Planner with Morpsey and Pepperoni.
Thanks. Laura.
Hi, everyone. My name's Laura Ritchie. I am with an organization called Root and Branch. We focus specifically on equitable development. Most of the time, that's in energy equity. My favorite topping is mushrooms.
Great. Ebony.
Hi, I'm Ebony. I'm an energy advocate for impact, and I'm Team Pepperoni.
Great. All right. Deb.
Hi, I'm with Ohio Interfaith Power and Light. I'm going to have to go with mushrooms.
Excellent. Ed. Ed here. But I think you might be muted.
There you go.
There we go.
Ed Moore with International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 683. I would go with Pepperoni.
Great, thank you. Larry Price.
Hi, I'm Elder Larry Price. I represent the faith-based community here in Columbus, the Baptist Ministry Alliance, the Interdenominational Ministry Alliance, and also the Pastors Conference. And pepperoni is my favorite.
Lots of mushrooms and pepperoni. Okay, Beth.
Hi, I'm Beth Urban from Impact Community Action, and I'm team any kind of cheese. Goat cheese, feta cheese, lots of cheese.
Excellent. All right, Councilmember Dorans.
Pepperoni every day of the week.
Excellent. Kevin.
Kevin McCain, Councilmember Doran's legislative aide, and I am also on Team Mushrooms. I'm very excited that I figured out how to annotate right before you called on me. So.
Oh. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Sorry for the technical glitch there, but did want to just make sure that folks have a feel for who else is in the room, since we will hopefully be convening several times over the next couple months. So with that, I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint here and move into the agenda as it stands. So over the next hour or so, we're going to spend a little bit of time hearing from Sam and Scott, giving a little bit of a just sort of the bare bones basic background on energy system and how a community choice aggregation program works. We'll have some time for questions, a little bit of discussion, and then Elena will walk us through how the community choice aggregation program fits into some of the Sustainable Columbus goals. Have some time to discuss there as well, leaving probably 20-25 minutes for that. And then just do some closings and next steps, review the schedule and participation for the next couple months of work together. Without further ado, I will hand it over to Sam.
Thanks, Sonia. So when we're discussing how aggregation works, I think it's helpful to first understand how our electric power systems work. So I'm going to cover the basics of how our electric power systems are structured, how they operate both traditionally and under deregulation. I'll define deregulation, and then we'll talk about how deregulation lends itself to aggregation. All right, so three main components of our electricity system. We've got our generation equipment or plants, our transmission system, the distribution system, and then the end customer. So starting on the left with our power plants over here. We've got these two different icons. I think they represent very well both the traditional, the top icon there kind of looks like a traditional power plant, which is probably generating power with either coal or natural gas or maybe a hybrid of the two. And then on the bottom, you can see we've got our little wind turbine and our solar panel. So these are representing renewable energy generation sources, which we will refer to today as our green power, with the traditional being often called brown power. The transmission system is the high voltage bulk movement from a power plant to a substation over long distances. So these are those huge metal towers that you'll see maybe out in the country. And then from the substation to the distribution system, it's going to be a lower voltage, and that will take it to the individual end customer. So the distribution system are the power poles that you'll probably see on your street. And at the very end, it's going to bring the power to a residence or a business for the end customer to consume. So in this traditional model, the utility is going to control this entire process. They file for approval by the state regulators, which is the Public Utility Commission. So they'll submit a rate case that will set pricing, as well as how much they're allowed to earn. And this is historically how electricity has been supplied. Thank you. All right, so again, here's our current situation. All AEP Ohio customers, including those within the city, are going to fall into this structure. So whatever the standard service offering happens to be, so there's some predetermined mix of green and brown power at a certain price, and that's what you're going to take by default, and that's that AEP Ohio standard service offer. So if you don't take any action, this is how you're getting your power and how you're paying for it, if you're an AEP Ohio customer right now. So this is also our current situation. This is meant to depict deregulation. Ohio deregulation was passed in 1999, and it started phasing into effect in January of 2001. So in a nutshell, deregulation is splitting generation off from the transmission and distribution. So you can see we've got some dotted lines there to indicate that separation. So under deregulation, you don't have to take whatever the standard service offer happens to be. The supply is obtained through an auction process, and you get to choose your supplier. So you get to shop for whatever is important to you. That might be, maybe you want all renewable power, maybe you're just looking for the best rate. All the very large customers are already doing this, and this is a big part of what my fellow energy managers do. So just again, this is just showing deregulation where we have our generation split from our transmission and our distribution. So every state is very different. Currently, it's about 35% of the US has some form of deregulation. So it's 17 states, including the District of Columbia, that are deregulated. And of those 17 states, only 7 have community choice aggregation legislation. So we're one of only 7 states with the ability to pursue aggregation. Some states are still fully regulated, meaning the customers don't have a supply choice, and therefore they cannot pursue aggregation. Go to the next one. Thanks. All right, so because we are deregulated and we have legislation allowing us to aggregate, we have this ability to aggregate our supply. Okay, so aggregation is the formation. I looked it up. So it says aggregation is the formation of a number of things into a cluster. So you can see our nice little graphic where we have all these individual customers that have been grouped together. So why would we do that? Basically, as an individual, I have a choice, but I don't have much buying power. And I also might not have much time or savvy to go about making sure I'm getting a better deal or the deal that I want. So the idea is that if the entire community comes together, we should be able to get a better deal, and we can also insist upon our generation source. So we can say we want green power if we want to. So it's basically just a really good way for a community to benefit by coming together. And Scott's going to talk in a little bit more detail, but basically if you don't want to join for whatever reason, you can very easily opt out. And you can go back to that standard supply offer or another deal of your choice.
Thank you, Sam. So what is community choice aggregation? Community choice aggregation is an easy and effective way for local officials to contract for competitively priced electricity based on group buying power for its residents. Let's just boil it down to something that people understand. If you've ever shopped at Walmart or Sam's Club or any of these other bulk buying places, it's the same concept. You're buying in bulk, you're getting discounts, and you're also able to, through these programs, pursue initiatives that the cities or the community leaders or the community itself find important. Under community choice aggregation, the City of Columbus will contract to provide residents and small businesses competitively priced clean electricity from retail generation suppliers certified by Public Utilities Commission of Ohio. I think it's important to know that we've got both Tradell and the supplier are a competitively, a PUCO certified I'm going to try to mute. I think we got some echo. Are you able to hear me now? All right, I think we got the echo. Generally, any Columbus resident or small business served by AEP Ohio, and this is the default rate, is what we're talking about, is eligible to participate in the city's community choice aggregation program. So everyone that is maybe not PIP, percentage of income payment, those are energy assistance programs created by AEP Ohio, those individuals would not be eligible. So how do residents join a community choice aggregation program? Well, first, the community choice aggregation issue will be placed on the ballot November 3rd and must be passed by the majority of voters. I think it's important here to note that the citizens do have, this is their first step in having a choice in having a program or being included in a program. Once passed, all eligible residents and small businesses in the community will be enrolled and will be given receiving the renewable and clean energy pricing under the program. Residents do not need to do anything to join the program. And I just want to clarify what that means. We will be sending out opt-out letters to each and every eligible customer. When they receive the opt-out letter, they don't need to do anything to be in the program. If they say to themselves, "Well, I really don't want to be a part of the program," or "I'm initially skeptical," they can opt out of the program, but they have to affirmatively opt out. The reason this program is important, or this step, is because if we're buying in group power, it's that commitment to the supplier that we're going to deliver a tremendous amount of power, specific number of customers, that gives the supplier comfort in lowering their prices or purchasing at one point this bulk electricity and being able to pass it on to the consumer. If we did it opposite in an opt-in, we would have no idea how many customers or the level of KWH or load, in this case, is what I call it, would be delivered to the supplier. And it becomes very difficult for the supplier to give any indication of a savings. So what are my energy supply choices if I decide to opt out? You can stay with your current utility, who will place you with a supplier of their choice. One of the biggest misunderstandings in Ohio right now is that AEP Ohio is generating your electricity. It is completely untrue. As Sam has already mentioned, the utility now gets their electric through auctions. And it's a complex, rolling, changing price strategy that then is passed on and made to people who are going to default to using the utility. If you want, you can also go and make your own choice, as you've always been able to. That's the benefit of competitive deregulation. So you have two options: use the utility's default rate, or go and shop on your own. Now, what if I've already selected an alternative generation supplier? Let's say at the outset of the program, you have a supplier. You will not be included in the aggregation because you're under contract. You've made your own decision to be with a supplier. It certainly doesn't mean that you can't join this program. We frequently spend a lot of our time here at Tradell helping people that have come to the end of their contract join aggregation programs. And that's how it would work. You would call the supplier at the end of your contract, and if you want to join the aggregation, you get asked to be included. You definitely want to check in with your existing supplier, as I always recommend, to be sure that you're not having an early termination fee with them. Next, please.
Scott, just before we go on, I think folks might be having a little bit of trouble hearing you. I'm not sure if you're on your computer. I know you had also called in. If you wanted to switch to phone, that might be a little bit easier.
Not a phone. Are we there?
Let's see if I unmute. Are folks able to? It may be just an issue of my audio, but are you able to?
If you opt out, and I heard permanently, so there's no choice as to opting into it later on at a future date. It has to be done at that time.
Great question. You can opt back in at a later date if you want to.
Okay. Are folks able to hear Scott enough at this point? It sounds like since there was a very astute question, we should be okay. But do flag in the chat if anyone is having trouble so we can adjust.
All right, so this is just a sample bill that we put up here. And as you can see, I want to point out that here we have AEP Ohio on the left, and we have AEP Energy on the right. So AEP is the utility, AEP Ohio is the utility, and AEP Energy on the right is a supplier. So here is the transmission distribution customer charge that you typically see with AEP utility. If there was no AEP Energy, you would see generation above transmission there. But in this case, the generation electricity is being supplied through AEP energy. And therefore, the generation disappears from the utility side. It shows up under AEP energy, the supplier side. And you can see that as, in this case, they're paying 4.3 cents a kilowatt hour through this program. Going back to Sam's slides, I don't want you to do that right now, but transmission, distribution, customer charge, you can see in the box down there, it shows the separation, those two, transmission, distribution, and again, generation above. Next slide, please. What are the key milestones? September through November, we're meeting with the advisory group. We're having 4 meetings between now and November to help guide us, educate everybody on the program, what it is, how it works, what everybody's roles are, and how we would want to see getting input from everybody about what a great, what an ideal program would look like. November 3rd, the election is held. Hopefully through the campaign and educational process, the voters of Columbus will vote for aggregation. And with that successful vote, we move into the next piece of the process. That is November, December of 2020. The city will have to conduct 2 public meetings to talk about its plan of operation and governance plan. This plan, again, is this plan is a very general plan, and it just talks a little bit about how the program is structured and run, not getting into details that are too detailed. This document, by the way, along with the application to the PUCO, will be submitted to the PUCO to gain the City of Columbus a certification as a certified governmental aggregator, community aggregator, okay? Once the city has obtained a certification and to become an aggregator, it's at that point that we will be putting together a master supply agreement with the supplier and being approved by council. So after that's completed, the aggregation program will then move to the next steps. And this is when the residents will receive opt-out notices in the spring of 2021-ish. And all the eligible residents and commercial customers will be enrolled starting with the June. Hopefully, it's our goal to have this up and running by June of 2021, and it will show up on your bill or your billing statement in July. So to recap real quickly, April, May, you'll be getting the letters. The opt-out letters are sent to all eligible residents. Those residents will review the information for 21 days to decide if they like it. And then it's submitted, the list is submitted to AEP Ohio to change everybody into the program, which will begin in June. The electric that flowed in June will show up on your July billing, and people will be able to see the new program, the new price, and be receiving renewable energy in June. So I'm going to turn this over to the next slide.
Thanks, Scott. So I see a couple questions coming through to the chat, which is perfect because we are at question time. First, wanted to do just a quick kind of temperature check with folks. And for those of you who maybe aren't able to get on video, I think you should all be able to use the chat function for essentially the same effect. Can we just get kind of a show of hands or fingers based on what we've shared so far, I know there's a lot of distribution, transmission, supply costs, lots of stuff going on here. If we can just get a feel for like 1 finger, I have absolutely no idea what's going on. 5, this is, I totally get it. Please no more. Let's move on to discussion, just to get a feel for how folks are doing, and then we'll open it up for questions. Some 4s, some 5s, 3, a 1, a 4, okay. And again, feel free to move the chat. That's super helpful. Okay, so sounds like mostly folks are feeling pretty good. They don't want to explain it to us yet, but we're on the way with a couple folks who could use a little bit more detail. So why don't we open it up for questions now, and maybe start off with what Sarah threw in the chat of, if someone has already chosen a 100% renewable package through AEP Energy, would that customer still have to wait until their current contract is over before joining the aggregation program? And we got a provisional answer from Mark, but Scott, do you want to just chime in there on details?
Yeah, if you guys could repeat the question. I had lost ability to hear. I mean, that whole past that thing I did just now, I couldn't hear anything that you guys were asking.
Okay. So the question is, if someone already has a renewable package through AEP Energy, do they have to wait until that contract term is up before joining the aggregation program?
Okay. This is, I think the question is, I've already got a contract with AEP Energy, and I want to join the aggregation program. Typically, you'd have to wait until your contract is expired. And I'm frankly not yet sure if they're going to be willing to end your contract without penalty and add you to the aggregation. It's been my experience, 50% of the time, they'll let you do that. And then 50% of the time, they want you to wait till your contract is expired.
Thank you. Other folks, feel free to throw things in the chat or just speak up.
I guess
my question is, what % of people do you expect to actually opt out?
Good question. Typical programs, we'll see a 10 to 15% rate of people who will opt out. That's pretty normal.
This is Deb with Interfaith Power and Light. And just to add a little more complexity to that first question, if AEP Energy, I think, wins the aggregation, so if this other supplier happens to be who gets the big aggregation pool, do we think that might make it easier? There's a whole lot of companies that sell energy, and so I'm just wondering if it happens to be the same company that's going to be doing the bundled citywide effort. And maybe we'll just find out when we get there. I might be getting too detailed.
I think what you're asking is AEP Energy. We did this, we issued an RFQ and it issued to AEP Energy to be the city's chosen supplier. And that process was run, I think, what was it, last month, Aaron, 2 months ago? And so AEP has been chosen as that supplier. Did that answer your question?
I guess I'm just wondering if it would make it easier. So we're assuming the voters are going to approve this. My gut instinct is they will, and I hope they do. So for folks who are already locked into, let's say I have another year with AEP Energy, but this is going to come online before that, maybe it'll make the transition easier. Maybe we're hoping, I mean, I would assume that that company would be cool with ending my personal individual contract and letting me join the aggregated thing. And I guess another, I'll stop there.
Oh, I was just going to say that I think that the the short answer is we don't have that answer at this point, but it is a good thing to bring up for us to think about as we talk about the master supply agreement with AEP Energy. Folks that are currently, you know, in individual contracts to supply from AEP Energy have a different source of renewable energy than the sources that we'll be negotiating for as part of the aggregation program. So that might be a complexity that they'll have to think through. But the very short answer is we don't know yet, but it's a good flag for more conversation.
This is Elder Larry Price. Can everyone hear me?
I can.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I thought I was following. I put up 4 fingers. Now I'm back down to 2 fingers. Because I guess my first question is, I thought we were told that you would should it pass, you would automatically be enrolled. Is that correct first? So if you're automatically enrolled, I'm confused on the other contract you were in before you became automatically enrolled. And then somebody said there may be a penalty associated with it should you, I won't use the word opt out because that's not the proper word, but should you change. But if you're automatically enrolled, then that was not a choice you made. You have to make the choice to opt out. Am I confused?
Yeah, let me start it, Scott, and then if you want to add anything, please let me know. So that's a very good question. And so the majority of folks in Columbus don't shop for their energy. They are in that standard service offer that Sam mentioned. And for anyone that is, you know, in that standard service offer, they would be automatically enrolled if they don't opt out into the aggregation program. There are folks like Mark mentioned in the comments that do individually shop for energy who've chosen a supplier because they have that right to do that. And those folks, when they have chosen to shop for their own energy and chosen a supplier, they negotiated individually with that supplier the term of their agreement with the supplier. So the certain number of years that they would be in that supply agreement. And for those folks, depending on the company or depending on the supplier, some suppliers would have a penalty if you choose to end your contract early. Other suppliers do not do that. So that's really the difference between the folks that don't shop for energy who are in the standard service offer and then individuals who have chosen to shop individually who are not in the standard service offer. Is that helpful?
Can I just add something really quickly, Elena? I just want to make sure it's clear that if somebody has already signed up for a special deal that's not the standard service offer, so they've gone out and they've investigated and they've signed up for a deal, they will not be pulled into our aggregation pool.
Thank you, but still some clarity. The average person, will we agree, and correct me if I'm wrong, the average person really does not shop electricity. You know, they get it, they sign up and keep moving. I'll be honest with you, when I get all those offers, I just don't really pay no attention. I just keep what I got. So I would assume majority of the people, there are some folks that are smarter than me, that have sense enough to shop. Now, having said that, so I still want the clarity on understanding that the majority of folks probably take the normal, I'm calling it normal stuff, don't shop. Those folks would automatically be enrolled. And then again, I'm sorry for being redundant, but choose to then opt out. There would be no penalty associated with them, right? They would just automatically be in, and that's the end of the story for them. It's only those who have shopped, went out, done the homework, I like what I got, they would not automatically be enrolled. And y'all have a way of distinguishing that.
You are correct.
So far, so good. So, okay, okay. I'm good for the moment.
So follow up to Elder Price's question is, are we going to do different marketing and different outreach to each one of those groups? Because it's two very separate messages that can get almost as confusing as choice in and of itself. So that's one. And then are there going to be, is it like an open enrollment for, let's say, because I've chosen my own energy too. So is it an open enrollment for me to choose this at any point once it gets approved, or will there be set days and times?
I was trying to unmute. I can take this one if you guys don't mind. So where it gets complicated is if you've already gone out and gotten your own deal, because I have also. I think I signed up to get a free Nest thermostat. So that's the kind of like tactic, you know, some of these suppliers will use, and that's how they got me, and I'm an energy manager. So where it does get complicated is when you're already in an existing deal and you would want to go back and maybe join the aggregation pool, because each individual supply contract is going to have its own term. So that's the duration. And then it also has, if you want to cancel it early, some of them do have penalties. So the people who have secured their own agreement are going to have to individually determine if they want to come back to the aggregation pool. Is the penalty worth it? Is there a penalty? So that's more on an individual basis. The rest of the bulk of our community that is on the standard supply offer is there won't be any penalty associated. They will automatically be brought into the program, and they will only be removed if they choose to take action and opt out. And then when they opt out, they can either go back to the standard supply offer, or they can choose their own deal from there. And in that case, there's no penalty.
And I'm going to follow up again and say, part of our strategy, are we going to have some specific education for people like you? And I'll be honest, I got suckered in for a nice large gift card at Oakland Park Nursery. So I have no idea what my terms are, and I don't know any of that, which I should. But are we going to have education for people like me on how to find your terms, how to make this choice, all of that? Because I think that's going to be a key demographic, because a lot of people who have changed their energies, I'm going to say a very few select people have done it out of, let me really go out and do my research. Most everybody has done it out of, what free thing are you going to give me? And I didn't read all of the terms and conditions. So how are we going to explain it to the majority of people who probably have made a choice just to get the freebie, whatever it was?
So I don't think we have anything in place right now to handle that specifically. What I did personally was it took a while for me to remember who my contract was even with. And I figured out, you know, I went to my bill and looked it up and figured out, because you can see on your bill who's your supplier, and then you can go online and use your account number to find your terms and everything. And so it took some doing, but yeah, I think that's a good point, that we should put something together to help people understand that are in that situation. Here are the steps that you can take to understand how to, you know, end your contract and transition to the aggregation pool, or, you know, how to get started to look into it, because every supplier's process is going to be different and every contract is going to be different. But I do think we could put together at least some basic guidelines that could be helpful.
Yeah, so Beth, this may end up being an annoying response that you all hear a lot from the city as part of the advisory committee, but that's a really good thing for us to hear, right? This conversation is really helpful. I think we might have a little bit of an unrepresentative population on this group of folks who have gotten hooked on a supplier that's not the standard service offer, but it is something that this flags for us, that we've got to do a little bit better a job making sure that we're communicating to folks that have shopped for their energy how aggregation will or will not impact them.
Thanks, Elena. So I do want to make sure that we have some time to go through some of Elena's next slides, but I just flagged two quick questions that have come up in the chat. The percentage, if we know what percentage of customers are in a contract, in one of these non-standard service offer contracts, maybe I'll kick that over to Scott, as well as the question about how aggregation interacts with the PIP program. Scott, do you want to take those and then we'll move on to the next section here?
All right, guys, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, I'm hitting all kinds of buttons to try to clear this thing up. It doesn't seem to be working. In any event, the percentage of contract that are in a contract, the last numbers I saw were about 35% of all AEP utility customers have already chosen their own supplier. So when you think about these numbers, if we have 1,000 households, 350 have already chosen their own supplier, 10% will opt out, so that's, another 100, we're now down to 550 households. Then you have the PIP customers and the energy assistance customers that are also excluded, and the mercantile customers. Typically, we end up with about 50 to 55% of the entire community being included in the program or eligible. Sonia, can you give me the second question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, just how the program interacts with PIP. I think you had already answered no in the chat, but just want to make sure that folks see and understand that relationship.
Sure. If you're a PIP customer, it's a program designed by the utility to help and assist people that are living below the minimum standard. And they are always excluded from the aggregation program. We get the list from the utility. We call it scrubbing the list. We scrub out people who've already shopped for their electric and the PIP customers and the mercantile customers. And that the people who are left are the eligible customer list. Then we'll receive the opt-out letter. Hope that helps.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to move us along to let Elena chime in with a few more things. Oh, sorry, someone?
Yes, it's me. I'm sorry. Just want to say before we move on, my concern is this. What appears to be, and what I've been sharing with folks, is the Walmart vegetable buying in bulk scenario in terms of what we're trying to accomplish with clean energy. But clearly there's some other questions that we definitely need to, because what we don't want to do is sell it on that and then come back and have people calling us with all of these issues and questions. They didn't know whether they opted out, should opt out, didn't know that I was already with something. Some people didn't pay attention to one of the points being made is that people just did it because somebody gave them a credit card or something. So I'm just saying, I think we need to take that serious, because if it should pass, we're going to be inundated with issues and problems along those lines. People will just be confused. I just wanted to make that statement.
And I'm happy to help you with some of these conversations, Elder Price. I'm not saying I'm an expert, but we've been working in energy audits for about 7 years. And unfortunately, people think I'm trying to sell them energy. And I'm like, oh, that's not what I do, but I understand there's so many of those folks. So education across the board is needed. And I feel bad for the presenters, because you're trying to give us a simple presentation of what we're going into, and we're really getting in the weeds, but the weeds are important. And as also somebody who works in the faith community, we'll follow up and continue to lean on our advisors who are the experts.
Thank you so much. That's a really critical point. And I think these conversations are, as Elena said, sort of exactly why to convene this group at this point is before a program launches, identifying where there are points of confusion and sort of sussing that out. I think we develop blind spots occasionally, and so this is exactly the type of conversation and timing that gives the city some time to react. So Elena, I'm going to hand it over to you to talk just a little bit about some of the goals here.
Yeah, sounds great. And, never feel bad about derailing us with lots of questions. That's the point of, again, this presentation. And our job is to be nimble based on where you guys want us to go to make sure we hit all the major points. So I did want to spend a little bit of time. You guys are going to have another opportunity to weigh in and help us think about how we can frame this for the community. And I want to give you all the chance to do that. But I wanted to refresh you all on what makes the Sustainable Columbus aggregation program a little bit unique. What are our guiding principles as we're thinking about setting up this program? So I'll be fast. Sonia, will you advance the slide? But not too fast. Hopefully the right amount of fast. So there are really three important guiding principles that can be broken down further, but it is that we are seeking an 100% clean energy product for the folks that are participating in the aggregation program. And we want that product to provide additional renewable energy, right? We want to be able to claim that because of this aggregation program, new additional renewable energy that is local to Ohio and as local to Franklin County and Columbus as possible is coming online because of this commitment and this work. Because that really leads into the second point, which is we want to make sure that we are growing a clean energy economy in our state and in our community. We know that clean energy brings good, well-paying jobs to a community, and we want to make sure that that happens here in Columbus and that that happens for our community. And that is why many of you are on the line today who have an interest in growing and providing workforce development to community members. And then lastly, this has been reiterated probably the best throughout this conversation already, is aggregation really is about choice. And what excites me the most about aggregation is it really is democracy in action, right? It doesn't remove choice, it adds choice for folks. If the community comes together and says, that we want this, we want to give the city of Columbus this ability to aggregate electric supply, it just adds one more arrow in our quiver that we're able to use to improve our community and help also provide sustainability programming. If you want to advance the slide, Sonia. So it starts with a vote. As we've talked about a few times, this is really just to reiterate that City Council has passed legislation to put this initiative on the ballot, but in order for us to have the authority to aggregate, our voters have to go and vote and say that they want the City of Columbus to have the ability to aggregate electric supply. Do you want to move on, Sonia? And Sam touched on this and a little bit before, but the real difference, the differentiator between the Columbus program and many other programs is that we want to use the community choice aggregation program to rapidly shift to a renewable energy supply and 100% clean energy program. And so you see, just like in Sam's graphic, there is that traditional power plant at the top and then the renewable energy sources. In this graphic, the traditional energy source, the brown power, is grayed out, and you see all of our energy supply coming from renewable sources. And so to kind of tie us up here, I'm going back to this initial graphic that shows at a high level really what our program is all about, clean energy jobs, and community choice. And I think Sonia has a little bit of a poll that'll take us into our last interactive portion of today to learn a little bit more from you guys about, of these kind of high-level goals, what resonates most with you.
Thanks, Elena. So I'm going to throw a quick poll up there, which is really just a question about sort of which of these is resonating with you most. So if folks can add their votes here, this is anonymous. We won't, anonymous and unofficial, but just helpful for us to get a sense of what's resonating the most. If anything else has come up. Getting close. A few more seconds to get those votes in. Alrighty. So just to give a sense, I think folks can now all see the results. Strong interest in clean energy, but also in the clean energy jobs. The choice piece resonating somewhat with folks. And I would be very curious if whoever added other wants to share what they were thinking at that point in time.
It's Miss Peg. I really should have put none of the above because I'm more concerned about public health than I am about if this shows that it has potential for improving my health. That's the selling point for me. To include that it helps with your health, improve your health. And also reduce, the cost, the personal cost saving for your own home. And I don't see that yet. So you need to show me that.
Thank you. That's really helpful there.
Yeah, this is Elder Larry Price. I apologize for talking so much, but it's an issue I think that could cause some serious confusion, especially in the minority community. So I want to piggyback on Sister Williams' comment. When I looked at it, I also was looking for, when you said community choice, what does that mean? In retrospect to her point about the health piece, if clean energy, and one of the things I've been saying is that you don't want to live in Los Angeles or some of these other places where they have smog alerts based on the amount of smog they're putting. That's a health issue. To Sister Williams' point, how does it affect my health? Using clean energy will affect, somebody correct me because I'm not the pro, will affect the health and welfare of Columbus because we will have cleaner air. That was not clear in those 4 comments. So I was a little bit, so I ended up picking clean energy because of the jobs aspect of it. It's got to mean either 8 jobs to me or health, to Sister Williams' point. It has to mean something to me. And I thought that they were kind of broad. So again, I apologize for talking so much, but that's what you put me on.
But the other piece,
that's great.
Yeah, adding to what Mr. Price had indicated, the other concern I have is that those of us who are on the PIP program are automatically excluded from this potential to aggregate energy. And I don't understand why that is. And I would think that would be a large percentage of customers that may be on the PIP, and it may also suggest that systemic racism within that if we find that a good percentage of customers that are on PIP are of African American descent or some other nationality that is not considered the major nationality. It adds again, to the disparity. So we need to find a way that those who are on limited incomes can be eligible for the aggregation, because in the long run, it is about the health of the community and the quality of life, which means the health, and also that you can afford to pay your bill every month when it comes.
And what a shame it'll be if the aggregate unit power is cheaper than the folks on the percentage of income payment plan. So we gotta, and then future customers will end up on PIP. So maybe I don't need PIP today, but my
might have to
spouse is losing a job. Maybe I'll need it next year. So I understand the complexities of why they can't be opted in immediately. And these are important issues that we're not the first to face, but this is somewhat a new frontier.
Yeah, these are really great comments. I think, there are 2 things here. One is and Scott and Sam can correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that it is a statutory limitation that makes it so that the PIP customers are not able to be part of the aggregation program. But Ms. Pegg, what you said is really important and powerful. I think we, in our later meetings, when we start to talk about what type of programming we want the aggregation program to support, thinking about how do we create programming that has ladders of opportunity built into it so that folks that are on PIP are able to move up that ladder in order to be able to qualify and become part of the aggregated load, I think is something that maybe we can all wrestle with and think about. But I don't believe it is our choice or ability to include or the PIP folks. So Sam, Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, that's correct. We, when Scott was talking about how the accounts will be scrubbed, so we won't include those that are already shopping. We won't include those that are already on PIP. That's because the PUC doesn't allow us to bring those in to the pool.
Yeah, I was going to just comment that all these things that you guys are bringing up are excellent, and Trey Bell and the city, as the voice of the community, can bring these issues to the attention of the PUCO, and where we believe there's changes that can be made, we will ask. So everything that you guys are bringing up has been noted.
Thanks. So we've already sort of jumped into this conversation, just throwing up some slides, another set of questions for folks to chime in on. I think the public health piece about sort of how to talk about this with neighbors is definitely coming through loud and clear, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Other questions, concerns, either speaking to any of these comments or others that folks want to raise?
So since there won't be PIP available, is there some type of program for if somebody does fall on hard times with these companies where they won't, will have some sort of relief and pressure?
Scott or Sam, do you want to?
Yeah. I know that the utility has programs, but it is something that if we, in our discussions after the election, it might be something that we could put together. It could be something that we address.
Because no, basically right now, if you're in the aggregation pool, you're subject to the same payment requirements. You have to pay your bill on time. You've got to pay it in full, or you will be subject to penalties, just like you are now on the standard service offer. So good question.
Yeah,
Sam, if someone,
I do know. I don't know if this is directly answering the question, but just like Sam was saying, if you are part of the aggregated pool, I do know that budget billing will still be available to folks. That's something that, was part of, it's been part of what we were looking for. And I think we want to make sure that that is still available to folks who are in the aggregated pool. So that's a way to just at least create more certainty for you each month as to, what your bill is going to be and what you're going to pay. And then it kind of gets reconciled at the end of the year. I won't go into details on that. That's where I can let Sam or Scott take over, but that's my understanding of how it works. And that is something we want to be available to folks to help.
Budget billing will definitely be available. And that's for those people who want more budget certainty. And just like the utility or competitive suppliers budget billing, these things are typically trued up annually. But the good thing is they'll be able to enroll in budget billing and have that budget certainty if that's something that's helpful.
If I'm not
And
mistaken,
just to put a finer, go ahead, Mark.
If I'm not mistaken, when somebody is in the program, they're in for 3 years and then they re-up after 3. Is that correct?
No, it's annually.
Oh, it's annually.
You're talking about the PIP, correct?
No, I'm talking about the city's aggregation.
Oh.
The program is yet to be finalized, but how it works today at a more traditional aggregation for electric, it can be no less than 12 months. It can be no more than 3 years. If it's a 5-year program, by law, we have to send opt-out letters to residents no less than every 3 years. So most programs are anywhere between 12 and 36 months. It is rare to see a 6-year deal or a 5-year deal. It's not that it can't exist, but by law, at most every 3 years, I said that backwards. At least every 3 years, people have to have the opportunity to opt out of the program. In today's modern programs, which Trayvell was a proponent and pushed to get these no early termination fee programs put together, you can leave anytime you want. So the opt-out process almost becomes moot because you can leave free of charge anytime you like.
Yeah, so just to put a finer point on that, it sounds like essentially if someone comes into is part of the aggregation pool but becomes PIP eligible or something like that, they could essentially opt out at any point and join the PIP program. Is that? So there's not while you would be prompted to opt out potentially every 3 years, you are not locked into 3 years, and no one would be locked into 3 years if they missed that opt-out period. I think
that's correct.
To clarify that.
There's a difference here between what is the law requirement versus what the program is designed. In this case, they can leave anytime they want free of charge. They don't have to wait for the opt-out period.
As an organization that helps people sign up for PIP, that information is going to be very important that we get out to people, just because if they're automatically opted in, but then come in for the first time to fill out PIP with us, we're not gonna necessarily know all of the details of that. So speaking for my organization, who sees 20,000 people a year trying to get this done, it's gonna be real important that this is clear.
Thank you. Okay, in the interest of being respectful for folks' time, I'm just gonna give Elena a chance to talk a little bit about what's coming up in our next meetings when we will have time to delve into this and more. But I think this has been a really important conversation. Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I think we definitely got some really good feedback on what will resonate and where there are points of confusion. And like Jenna mentioned at the very beginning when she introduced herself, if any of you after leaving the meeting have these moments or these questions that you have, please reach out to Jenna and ask your questions between meetings. Happy to set up individual calls with you all to go through those questions. Our goal is to be a resource for you and to put you guys in the best position where you understand the community choice aggregation program that we're proposing and are able to provide us great advice because you understand it. Jenna just dropped her contact information in the chat for everyone. So where are we going after today? Like I mentioned, our goal really here is to be nimble and to be responsive to the questions that you all ask and the thought-provoking things that you propose. But we do have some objectives for the next few meetings. Our next meeting is September 24th. And in that meeting, we want to give you all a refresher about what we talked about today, but we want to spend the bulk of our time talking about aggregation in action. So giving you all a sense of when we have an aggregation program, what would it actually look like in action? What are the responsibilities of the different players in the aggregation program, and how will the program function? So that'll be our next meeting, right? If you think of it as a funnel, we gave you an introduction today. We want to go a little bit deeper about what our program will actually look like. Meetings 3 and 4 are really where we're going to ask you guys to exercise your mental muscles and you provided us great advice today, but even more advice. At meeting 3, we're going to talk about our renewable energy future. We're going to talk about the product that our preferred energy supplier, AEP Energy, is proposing to provide to us. And we want to get your feedback and thoughts on that. And we want to also talk about, next steps in that programming. And then lastly, meeting 4 is going to be about community priorities and sustainability goals. And this is, near and dear to the entire sustainability team's heart, right? Is with that community choice aggregation comes the ability to support other work, and particularly interested in thinking about what work is important for us to prioritize as part of the sustainability kind of programming and goals that community choice aggregation can support. While these are our planned meetings, I do want to let you all know that we don't envision that September 22nd will be the end of the conversation. We believe that this will be an important start to help us begin to craft what will need to be in our master supply agreement with AEP Energy, what education materials we need to be thinking about right now providing to the community. But we see community choice aggregation as really what its title is. It's community choice aggregation, and it must involve the community. So we will continue to engage you all. Our hope is that we can continue to engage you all as we get deeper into program design and implementation. So how are we doing on time, Sonia? I think we're out of time.
All righty. Well, thank you, Elena, and thank you, everyone. Are any closing words from any of my co-facilitators? Otherwise, we will look forward to seeing and talking with you all and delving more into all of the things that we just got a chance to sort of scratch the surface of and uncover some areas of interest and concern on our next meeting. Thanks very much.
Adios.
Thank you all.
Thank you.